As we begin our discussion on contour lines, I wanted to show you this picture of this sculpture I found. This sculpture is in San Francisco, and I forget the name of the park, but basically, as you stand here, you're looking over the opening for the San Francisco um, Bay for the Golden Gate Bridge, right? So the Golden Gate Bridge goes right across this. So as you're there, you'll look at across. If I were to lift the camera, we'd be looking at the Golden Gate Bridge from the San Francisco side. What this sculpture has done is it's shown us the elevation. It's created a little model, but what they did is for each contour line, they added another layer, and then eventually they cast it all in bronze. But it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And as we look at this area, we can see where these lines are further apart, that would be where it's not as steep. Where the lines are right next to each other, that shows an area that is much steeper. As we look at the mountaintops, we can see that it's a small circle and then a wider circle and a wider circle and on and on and on. When we have something like this where it's a little saddle, we have a peak here and a peak over there, and those contour lines start to get a little bit further across. It's almost like there's a little contour line bridge going from that mountain over to this point. Okay? As we look at the contour lines from above, we should probably keep all of this in mind. We're looking now at the Lyell, Washington topographic map. This goes right along the Columbia River. It's actually the boundary line between Washington and Oregon. And I wanted to show a few of the different features that show up on this map. Okay. Now, thinking about our symbology, there's a lot that we have here. We know that where there's a line with the little cross marks going along, that's going to be a railroad and a main road right here. But then I want to look specifically at the contour lines on this map. We see a lot of contour lines very close together, right in this area, right in this area. That's going to be an area that's quite steep. As we look up here, up onto what they call the flats, the contour lines are very far apart. The change in elevation is relatively insignificant through this region. So remember, every time you cross that line, it's as if you've gone up a certain amount. If you're going to be crossing that certain amount quickly over a distance, it's going to be very steep. If it's somewhere like this, then it's going to be pretty far apart. Let's come back over here to Oregon. And you can see a few mountains that are over here. So if we're down here, notice this green patch has a lot of the smaller circles there. That's going to be an orchard. So you're down in the orchard, and then you start to move up the hill, and you cross a contour line, and another one, and another one. You're going higher and higher, and those contour lines make that full circle. Okay. Keeps going, and a lot of times at the top of these little peaks or hills or mountains or whatever they might be, there's going to be numbers that are there that are helping us to read what the elevation is at the very top there. Notice that this is symbolized with just a little X. This one over here has that funky little triangle thing. Here's another one with a little X. Over here, we've got something like that, but it's only this darker line that's labeled. And then we need to figure out what the next line up is. And that brings us to the next idea of contour interval. Now, if you're working with a topographic map, down at the bottom, they're quite helpful because they'll have the scale bar. It tells you what the scale is, your scale bars, and then voila, it tells us what our contour interval is. So every 40 feet, they put a contour line. Now, that works great, right? So you're at 1800, and then you're at 1840, and then you're at 1880, and on and on and on. Now, if you did not have that contour interval provided, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this might be on a quiz, then what are we looking for? Then what we want to do is we want to look for two of these index contour lines. Notice how the index contour lines are a little bit darker, and they are usually labeled, right? So this one doesn't look like it's labeled until we follow it around over here to 2000. So we have 1800 to 2000. Right? So the difference between those two index contour lines is going to be 200 feet. Right? Then we need to figure out how many gaps we have. So right here's one gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps in between those. Now, this one does have 5 gaps. Most of them that I've seen have 5 gaps. However, I have seen some with 4 gaps. So you want to count that. I got very confused trying to figure it out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different gaps, right, between those intermediate contour lines to do 200 feet, right? So we would take 200, divide it by 5, and that gives us our contour interval of 40 feet. Okay, so that's going to be how we calculate our contour interval. Either go to the bottom of the map and it will give it to you, or we can look at 2 index contour lines, figure out what their values are, figure out how many gaps in between, and calculate accordingly.